Hey everybody, welcome to the Seano Show. My guest today is Maria Bello. She's an actress, writer, producer, social activist. One of my all-time favorite movies, The History of Violence, The Cooler, ER, NCIS. She is an absolute badass. She's a kind soul. I married her in Cabo. We're gonna have an extraordinary show.
I couldn't live unless I was acting, and I had an outlet for that. And this job, as amazing as that show was, as amazing as all the people were, I couldn't bear to be there. I could do a whole book show about self-help books, these programs everywhere in the world, body workers, head workers, like I just did the whole fucking thing. Finally, I gave it all up because I realized there's nothing to fix.
You made a bet on yourself. And that's what we do. When you believe in yourself and love it, you make a bet on yourself, even though it's fucking scary. My guest today is Maria Bello. She's an actress, writer, producer, activist for social issues. She is in one of my all-time favorite movies, The History of Violence with our brother Vigo, which is a masterpiece, by the way.
Yeah.
The Cooler, ER, NCIS. You were in a little TV show recently called Beef. Is it Beef?
Yes, Beef.
Little show that you got nominated for an Emmy. Yeah, congratulations. You also came up with the story and were producer on The Woman King.
Yeah.
And you're also one of the kindest people I've ever met. And I was blessed to be the officiant at your wedding with Dom a couple months ago. So thank you for that. And here we are on a Sunday at 1925 Shell Avenue.
And I can't believe you're making me cry off the bat.
From the gate.
What the fuck,
I'm
man?
sorry, Eddie. I'm sorry. So listen, I was just riffing. You know how I love to riff.
Yes.
And I wrote down things I want to talk about.
Okay.
I wrote down Paris. I wrote down menopause. I wrote down marriage, social justice, getting in the dirt, disaster relief, Woman King, creative rebirth, Carl Jung's 7 Rules for Life, a modern family.
Great.
What does it mean to let go? Acceptance of my extremes. We can talk about all that or none of that, but you know I love story.
Yep.
And so we got to go back a little bit to Philly.
Good. Let's go.
Because I always love to know, what was that moment like you saw Jaws and you wanted to be an actor, what it was. Were you a happy kid? Were you a nerdy kid? Were you the kid in all the plays?
My mother tells people all the time I was a bookworm. I was very shy in my way, an introvert, and trying to escape the chaos that was going on around me. I would just live in books. So it was stories, it was words, it was stories. And then I started playing dress up to go with those stories, to sort of disappear into another place that wasn't my reality of what I was living. So when I look back on it now, it makes sense that I became an actor and a storyteller and a writer.
What was the cast?
What was the case?
Zeno.
You know, it's so interesting. You and I talk about this a lot. There are people who have come from horrible circumstances and people who come from great circumstances. When I was growing up, even into my adulthood, I thought everyone grew up like me. It just wasn't true. And then I started meeting people who had like really kind fathers, never been yelled at. Like in my life, it was a blue-collar suburb of Philadelphia. My father was a construction worker. My mother was a nurse, but a full-time mom. They had 4 kids by the time they were like 26 years old. Wow. I mean, imagine. And then my father, at 33 years old and not very educated, he left high school, went into the Army. A steel beam was dropped on his back on a construction site, and his back was broken. And that spiraled into addictions for him, into alcohol, into drugs, into, mental illness. And my mother had to go back to work. Thank God she had a nursing degree, because most women didn't work back then. So she had to go to work, and we were left to be raised by my dad, who was not in a good place.
And he spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair.
Yeah, well, disabled, definitely with his back. Now he's in a chair. He's in a home right now. And it's funny, I have a lot of compassion for my dad, for sure. And I've been in therapy since I was like 20. I told you I went to like EST when I was 20. LifeSpring, EST. I was way into it. And So understood, I think just because of the soul that I was born at, understood that he was actually a good man, even though he was abusive verbally, physically, particularly to my brother, even to our animals. Like it was that, witnessing that.
Mm-hmm.
But weirdly, I always knew, and we all knew, that he was a good man underneath it all. He was just wounded. And so I had this major forgiveness, even in those years, 20s, 30s, 40s. And it wasn't until you and I started working together again that another layer came up.
Yeah.
And the other layer was, yes, I can forgive him, accept him, and at the same time, accept that I never had someone read me a book, you know, sit on someone's lap, someone that holds your hand and says, like, you're the sweetest girl, whatever, all of those little things that I woke up to, particularly getting married now, and realizing that was never modeled for me. I never had that figure in my life that I could trust. Maybe that's why I didn't get married until now. I think that was part of it. You and I have spoken about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that real trust. It's what we were just saying about my marriage, the conversation I had, right? Like trusting someone that I can ask for help. It was like with my father, I felt like I would walk to his chair and he'd say, "You're safe." And then I would get smacked, right? So it was like that love you, hate you, you know, smack you, kiss you. Like it was very, very confusing to me.
And now I know you love him.
I love
But the
him.
relationship's on your terms.
It's totally on my terms.
Right.
And you taught me a lot about that, about boundaries. My father will never understand what I'm saying. I can try to have these deeper conversations with him, but that's not where he's at.
Right.
You know, and he's losing his mind a bit now. He has a little bit of dementia. He's in a home and all the women are crazy about him. He goes around on his little scooter and flirts with everyone and waters the gardens and plays rummy cube and bingo. And he's really enjoying his life. And my mother is so crazy about him. They're still so crazy in love. It's unbelievable after so many years. They're addicted to each other. They've always been addicted to each other.
Wow. Do you get your kindness from your mom?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I get my kindness from my mom, for sure.
Where else do you
For
get it?
sure. From my dad, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a really, really kind family, like really steeped in values of compassion, of God, of, you know, everybody's a decent person. So we always came into our life thinking people were decent until they proved different. But I definitely still do that. I probably have done it too much, so that I've been hoodwinked quite a few times. Because I just accept people and like, oh my God, they seem so open, so great, so loving, so kind. And then they fuck you in some
Right.
way, right?
Right.
But you find out later it wasn't true.
Yeah. And we've done a lot of work around looking at the flags for deceptors of the world.
Exactly, for sure. You taught me a lot about discernment, what that means. It's not like I'm being hard or I'm being guarded. It's called discernment.
So when did you get the real bug for acting and saying, I got to get the fuck out of here and get my ass to New York?
Well, I was studying law, international women's rights and peace and justice education. I went to Villanova University and I was going to go to law school. That was my plan. I wanted to change the world. I was always a social justice advocate from when I was younger. And I had a crush on this guy. It was at the end of my junior year. And someone said you could take an acting class as an elective, and he was taking the class. I was like, cool. But I never thought I could be an actor. I thought you had to be born in Hollywood. You had to sing and dance. I did none of those things. But I took the class, and I was really good at it. I was so good at it, in fact, that the teacher called my mother to say that I was really good at this, and she'd never sort of seen this before. And I knew I was doing this monologue, and it was a Bob Dylan song. I'll never forget it. And it was about, I dressed like a homeless person, an unhoused person, and gave this monologue. And I realized that I could be more helpful in a social justice way, probably being an actor and doing what I did best. But I was also so ashamed there we go, shame again, which you and I have dealt with a lot. We'll talk about later. But my best friend was a Catholic priest who my son's named after, actually. His name is Father Ray Jackson. My son's name's Jackson.
Wow.
So he was my best friend. He was my only friend in college. Really, really incredible guy. So I went to him and I said, Father, I don't know what to do. I thought I was supposed to help the world in some way. And I was going to go into politics. And now, I want to be an actor. I don't know what to do. And he said, Maria, you serve best by doing the thing you love most. And I went, oh, okay.
Say that line one more time. It's so good.
You serve best by doing the thing you love most.
Amen. Right on.
Right.
Right on.
So I packed up 2 trash bags filled with clothes and $300 and went to New York City.
And were you nervous? Was your family like, no, were they like, no, you got to go to law school?
No. And I want to say that about my father too. He wasn't all bad and wounded when I was growing up. He was funny as well, like funny of like, go ahead, do whatever you want. They were always cool about that. As old-fashioned, he comes from an immigrant Italian family. My mother's a Polish immigrant family. As traditional as they are, they're also very open-minded. They've always supported us in whatever we wanted to do. But granted, I was, paying for myself since I was like 16 years old, through college, and started my first job when I was 11 years old. Constant worker. So I had to bring myself to New York. Live on somebody's floor. Okay, so there was like this Village Voice, and I would found apartments. So I lived on this girl's floor. And my dad and my brother came up and they built me a screen. It was purple satin on wood, so they could separate me from the room. And I had a little single mattress on the floor and these little milk crates for my books. And that's how I lived. You're going to love this. This is so me, by the way, this story. You're going to get this. So I'm working as a restaurant. I'm working as a waitress. I'm making my way. I'm like the girl with the army boots. You know what I mean? Like I was a tough Philly girl. And I bought flowers for myself no matter what. No matter how poor I was, I would go to the deli. They were $3 at the time for like a dozen. I had these yellow tulips. I went that day, like down to my last money. No money. And I'm walking and I hear this guy say, yo, are those flowers for me? And I laughed and I turn around and I see the guy and I go, yeah, why not? Here. He was like, I was kidding. I'm like, no, have the flowers. It's okay. And he turned to me, he's like, who are you? We start talking. He was this famous actor called Paulie Herman.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
he's passed away since, but we got to talking. He's like, I should introduce you to my friend. He's a manager. And also, the best acting teacher in New York City, Fred Karaman. Go see him. You need to go see him. I'm going to give you his name right now. And do you know what? Wow. That became my first manager. That acting teacher changed my life.
Wow.
I was in class with him from the next week for the next 3 years, learned everything I know about acting from this man. But it was because I was willing to give away the flowers.
Yes, that's right.
Really?
That's right. And that continues to be a theme in your life.
It does.
It really does.
It does. I have,
Wow, you never told me that. That is really beautiful.
It started quite young when I started having this, these connections that started happening. But it's about keeping your eyes open and being generous. Mm-hmm. Not for the connection to happen, but just
yeah, you weren't, if you've given the flowers and that was, you would have moved on with your day.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Kindness respects kindness.
I think that's right.
I think it's right.
I love that. Kindness respects kindness.
Kindness respects kindness. He felt the vibration, the frequency of your generosity.
Yeah, maybe
and he's
that's
such
right.
a sharp guy. He probably realized you were a starving artist.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
saw that's beautiful. Wow. So what was your first big break?
My first big break was a Pizza Hut commercial.
Oh my God.
My mom still has a video of it somewhere because they were like looking, and I'm under a hat and I walk by like this. Right. She has a video of it and you have to go like, oh, there she is. Right. No, that's not her. There she is. No, but my big break happened. So years after that, I was good. I got good. I worked really, really hard to become a really good actor. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot of concentration and a lot of effort. And then I was dating some guy who lived in LA. And everyone told me I would hate LA. I was such a New Yorker. But I went to visit him. in LA. He came to pick me up. He was an actor. He was going to an audition at Universal Studios or Warner Brothers Studios. I went with him, and he's in the casting office, and he came out and he goes, "Hey, the casting director, she's from Philly. She wants to meet you. Kathleen Littery." I hope she's still alive and hears this.
Yeah, right
She really
on.
changed my life. Thank you if you're out there. And I met her, and she said, "Would you read something for me?" And I said, "Sure." And I did a reading, because I'd been in class doing this for 3 years now. I'd never seen it before, but I was reading with her across the table, this part. It was a remake of the show called 77 Sunset Strip. It was an old show from the 70s or something.
Sure.
And I got the job. So literally my first foot in Los Angeles, I got a job that day, the pilot. And what I realized is I was a cute girl, but I also knew how to act, right? And what happens a lot in Los Angeles, apparently, well, no, I know it now, but kids come here, but they don't have there's no base.
No skill set.
No skill
No
set.
commitment, no ethic in the work.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate enough that I had the skill set at that point. But there were ups and downs after that. Listen, I wasn't working consistently, I was still trying to learn about Hollywood and agents. And then I did this show called Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which was I was a big success in. And then ER. ER was gigantic. And then when I left ER, which was so crazy. Back in the day, everyone thought I was crazy. I was supposed to be on that show for a 7-year contract or whatever. And it was a year and a half into it. And I was so in pain. I was bored. It wasn't what I expected it to be. I expected it to be this community of actors, like where I'd come from, like in the theater, and a lot of joy and expression. But there were so many people to service and so many stories, and I didn't really get to act. And I needed to act for my crazy. My crazy could not live. I mean, I couldn't live unless I was acting, and I had an outlet for that. And this job, as amazing as that show was, as amazing as all the people were, I couldn't bear to be there. And so I went to my producer, really kind man, another really kind man, John Wells, and said, "I'd rather sweep streets at this time, at this time in my life. Like, I'm going crazy and I gotta go." And he was so supportive and so cool. Now I look back, I'm like, what, were you crazy for leaving ER? But I also know that I wouldn't have been alive.
Right.
I was so deep in my depression, anxiety. It was before it was really diagnosed, before I'd ever been on medication. I would trip up, and, for months at a time, I was like underwater. I could barely leave my house, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And it was after I left that show, I spiraled like so far down that I had like a psychotic break. And I got in my car and I started driving through a thunderstorm from Los Angeles. And 20 hours later, I found myself in like a Holiday Inn in Needles, Colorado, like wanting to kill myself. Like, no idea. Thank God I had a great brother who lives here, who Chris. And
were you in like a manic
friends.
episode?
It was a mixed episode. It was manic and depressed. It was, suicidal, but I didn't know how to talk about it at that point. So they got me back home, and my sweet mother, came out to be with me. And a psychiatric nurse came to the house, and I was there for about 3 months. The sweetest thing, my mother would hold my feet at night because I couldn't stop moving my feet. It was a big thing. I felt like there was no ground to stand on. And I went to a psychiatrist for the first time, and he said, I was so nervous about medication. There was a lot of shame around that as well.
Do you remember?
I want to say I was like 27 years old, so 30 years ago.
Yeah, people were not talking about this stuff.
No.
Hush, hush.
No, it was a very shameful
No
thing.
awareness, no.
But this great psychiatrist that I found as soon as I got back, he said, "Maria, if you're nearsighted, you need glasses to see. It's that simple." So I remember those first 3 months going on and off of different medications, trying to find the sweet spot for me, and some things didn't make me feel good, and I felt lethargic. And then I finally found a protocol that worked. And I couldn't believe how much better I felt. I couldn't believe how much more like me I felt, as opposed to the idea that I'd heard about that medication dampens you somehow. Somehow it made me more of who I am, and I could actually function in the world.
What advice would you have for people struggling with these type of issues now?
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
So hard. Ask for help. That's what I did with you, right? Being in a bad time, in a hard place in my life, asking you for help. Asking people we love, like I just asked my wife for help, which was, even though she's my wife, was gigantic for me. And, you know, if you don't have someone personally who can help you, there's plenty of people, like Google people who can help you to get through what you're going through, because we've all gone through stuff. And there's always people there to support us, always.
Beautiful. So right on. Let's stay on that. Well, the thing about ER that I love about you, you've never played it safe.
No.
And I love your gumption, and I love, like, you kind of do your own thing and leave millions on the table sometimes for it.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. I've always been odd.
Is that odd or just
eccentric? My son calls it eccentric now.
Yeah.
I think because I'm an artist.
A real artist.
I think the idea that, from our growing up, our childhood, we all have all this garbage. Garbage. What are you going to do with it? For me, it was like taking it out and making a beautiful sculpture. And that way it would be outside of me and I could see it and it would become beautiful. So I've thought about my whole kind of creative process like that, like continuing to put it out there and make all that something beautiful. So sometimes it's not even a choice. Sometimes my body or something goes, remember I just let this big job go. Something in me goes like, I can't. And sometimes I'm even down to my last dollar sometimes. I'm like, I can't do that. That will not be good for my soul or my mental health. The times when I haven't done that, I haven't listened to myself and I've taken some job because it's money and it's a studio film or whatever, never went well. It wasn't the part for me. It didn't go well. So now.
When you didn't trust your intuition.
That's right. I didn't.
Because intuition is always right from the gate.
That's right.
Always.
Do you think always?
Yeah, I do.
Can it be fear sometimes though?
Sure.
Because I struggle with that, right? Is my intuition always right, or is it fear sometimes?
I think the best gift trauma SARs get when they do the work and they make peace with their spirit, they get the gift of intuition back again.
Right.
I really wholeheartedly believe that. I believe when I get that yucky, it's God talking to me and pay attention to it.
Right.
And it's always served me well.
So you have a very clear red light, green light.
Yep.
Because you've worked at it for years, like honing that probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm getting better at it.
I know you are getting a lot better. Let's go into this because you said it certainly acceptance of my extremes and the navigation of that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
For so long. So I told you about that episode. It was my first sort of psychotic break. Realizing that, my brain was different and I needed medication. And I was diagnosed with different things throughout the years. Some people called it bipolar. Some people said episodes of depression and anxiety. Right? There was all of these different diagnoses. And I was always trying to fix myself. I was in therapy for, 30 years, different therapists. I read every self-help book you could ever imagine. I could do a whole book show about self-help books. Spiritual teachers, these programs everywhere in the world, body workers, head workers, like I just did the whole fucking thing. And finally I gave it all up because I realized that there's nothing to fix. And that's why I came to you, right? Because you're a guy who knows there's nothing to fix.
That's exactly right.
You're good. You're good exactly how you are. So when I say the acceptance of my extremes, it's like, yes, am I way here and way here? Yep. Even with medication, I still can do that thing. But now I'm more in acceptance of it. It's not going to go away. That's what it is. But how do I make that magical? How do I make it art? How do I know when I travel different time zones, I tend towards mania. So you know what I do now? I start organizing the house as soon as I get home.
Smart.
I try to use that sort of energy into something.
You got
a
an
little more
acceptance
productive.
about it. And that's when the real magic happens.
Yeah.
There are certain things you have to do. When you get off the plane in Paris, you've got to fix your place. It's just the way it, whatever that version is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's
Morning
what-
routine, like you always talk about.
We always, I'm about the routine.
Yeah.
Right. And here's that I mean, I love you for a lot of things. Time progresses, you get more success.
Yeah.
You realize you're quite good at this. You're rewarded publicly and, financially for your gift that you work so hard for. But you've always balanced it with humanitarian efforts.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you even knew this, but I started a program with two friends in New York City when I was a waitress, like had nothing, called the Dream Yard Project, which is now a gigantic school in New York City in the Bronx.
What?
Yes.
Oh,
I was
I don't know.
Yeah, I was in acting class with these two guys. They were so wonderful. They were volunteering at this school for boys and girls in Harlem. And it was a play program, an after-school play program. So we decided to create our own program. So 3 times a week we would go up. There were kids from 5 to 12 years old and, running around hiding in trash cans the first day we got there. And we said, tell us the stories about your lives, your hopes, and your dreams. And we started helping them to express their stories. Where's the place you always wanted to go? I always wanted to live underwater. Okay, so what would we do there?
Oh.
And so fell in love with these kids and the work they were doing and saw how much these kids were growing. We did a play with them. We rented out a theater. So the kids put on a show. Then Spike Lee was casting a movie called Crooklyn.
Oh my God.
And we took all of our kids, 12 kids, to audition because they were looking for kids for this movie for Crooklyn. And one of the kids got the part.
Wow.
Her name was Tennille Royale. Tennille, if you ever hear this or anyone knows her, please find me. I've been trying to find you for years. She was a foster kid. Her and her sisters lived with this family in an apartment in Harlem. So I was her caretaker. I was her caretaker on set of this movie. She got the part. So before I started working in movies, I met Spike Lee and was a teacher on the set of a movie watching this young kid.
That's genius.
Get her
That's
break.
So beautiful. Wow.
So I loved my work doing that in New York City. But then I heard this kid, Carlos was his name. He was around 12 too, I think 11, 12. He gave this speech because we were having a fundraiser. By a fundraiser, I mean we cut up some cheese and crackers. We had like 20 kids like paying $5 to come. My parents would come up and help. That was another thing. They were always generous too about, humanitarian social
All your different
justice
programs
work.
you were doing. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Carlos said, they gave me confidence to follow my dreams. And I thought, oh yeah, but I'm not doing that. I was actually putting so much energy and effort into helping other people, which I tended to do in my life, and I still do. I can get wrapped up in that. So much energy helping other people to succeed that I wasn't paying attention to myself. I wasn't giving the energy enough to myself to succeed, and I wanted to be a successful actor. That's what I wanted to be. And so I remember that moment and waking up inside and going, I gotta go. Like, I need to focus. And I did. And soon later I was in LA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've sort of done these programs my whole life. Then I started working when I came to LA with Save the Children. There was a hurricane in Nicaragua one year. My brother who lives here, we were here for Thanksgiving. We had nothing to do. I saw it on TV. It said, Save the Children, give to this Nicaragua fund. There was a horrible hurricane. And so I called the person from Save the Children in LA. And I was like, hey, what's up? I'm an actor. And they knew who I was. I think I was on ER or something at the time. And can we help? And he was like, yeah. So I got this group of friends together. Within a week, we collected all sorts of things to play with. Soccer balls, crayons, coloring books, like glitter, art supplies. And we went to Nicaragua, 7 of us with Save the Children. And we moved to different camps and we did play programs. What we realized is that being entertainers, being storytellers, if you have this much devastation in your community, the thing that lifts you up is the laughter of your children. Mm-hmm. If you see like your kids are starting to have joy again and play, we would see people just crying, just watching their kids playing again. And we would play games with them and music and dancing. And so that sort of started off my foray into disaster relief, which would become much of my life. Doing disaster relief after that.
Was that an accident, that the storytelling that you knew was a great healer, or did you have
No, I had no idea.
You had no idea.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like I planned it or I thought it out. I never thought much out, by the way, and I still don't, which is a problem for me sometimes.
Yeah.
I just sort of like go with the flow, and I just went with the flow, and we just thought we'll go there to
help out, see what happens,
help
and
out. And then it became this. Cut 2 years later, Save the Children started a play program in camps because they found that it was a really, they started safe spaces play programs in camps. And then I went with them to quite a few places, to Nepal, to Bhutan, to Thailand, to a few other places with Save the Children.
How'd you end up in Haiti working there?
Well, I'd been to Haiti 2008. A friend in Hollywood invited us to go, and I fell in love with this country. There was a Catholic priest who became a doctor who worked there and has a children's hospital, Father Rick Frechette. And we went and we worked at the hospital and lived on the grounds of the hospital and had an extraordinary experience. It was like working in the hospital during the day and partying all night. And fun and hot and sexy, and to be living in the kind of like that, the rhythm of the earth. I can't explain Haiti except it's the sexiest place you've ever been to. A lot of pain. There's also a lot of poverty and a lot of pain, but there's so many incredible people there doing so much healing for people and with people and within their communities. So there's a real power there. Even of the poorest of the poor, there's a real power and a real resilience that I was really drawn to. So a couple of years later, in 2010, so I got to be friends with this priest, another priest. I have a thing for priests. And and the earthquake happened in Haiti. 235,000 people died in this earthquake.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't a little earthquake. People don't understand that. They don't remember that. So I was in my therapist's office, true story, with my boyfriend. We were breaking up. He was out in the hallway, and I was saying to the therapist, okay, we've been here enough. We got to do it today. I mean, he and I are over each other. And he knew it too. Okay. I mean, the next thing you know, he comes bursting in. He's like, oh my God, there was an earthquake in Haiti. So we called our friend right away, Father Rick, and say, what should we do? He was at his dying father's bedside in Connecticut. And he said, if the spirit moves you, come and help me dig my people out.
Wow.
So 5 days later, I found myself on a plane with a weird, interesting group of people, from movie stars to socialites to plastic surgeons to tugboat captains to the strangest group. Senator. There was a senator with us who was like in a Me Too moment, a senator who came to get some press, like strange people. And we landed there in the midst of, it was rubble at this point. It was only 5 days after the earthquake, so they were still digging people out from under rubble. And we landed there, and the next thing you know, we found this camp that had popped up, 50,000 people. And it was this old golf club, old country club. Funny enough, so I have really good friends in Haiti now. You met Lolo.
Yeah.
So she became my best friend. Yeah, she's my person. 14 years ago, whatever, she and I met. This is the country club where they used to like play golf, and she learned how to swim and ride horses. And Haiti has that as well. People don't understand it. They just think it's this poor nation. But there's like an entire culture there, generations of people who grew up and who play golf and go to the country club. But now 50,000 person camp, and the station was at the top of the camp, and I started a women's clinic there. So that was the first sort of, and I loved it, and I wasn't afraid. I think I had worked so long and to have such tough skin that I actually do have really tough skin. It's getting thinner as I get older. Sometimes I'm feeling things I might not have felt before, and maybe that's not a bad thing, but it works for disaster relief. And again, the disaster relief, as painful as a baby dying in your arm, but that night, like you've fallen in love with someone you've just met for 2 days, and you're, dancing in the middle of this crazy crowd, like that. You have both of those things. That's why the TV show that I've sold for 13 years that I'm back again doing is the disaster relief show.
All right. I hope that happens.
Me too,
That'd
because
be a
there's
special
so
thing.
much.
We're just putting that in the universe right now for that to get down.
There's so much rich material there, because people come from all over the world. It's this common sense of good, of kind, of wanting to save people. But we go there to these disaster zones all over the world. We go there to give relief, but we go there to get relief from our own pain, from our own shit, from our own boredom, from our own addictions, whatever they are. So somehow it heals you.
Yeah. My great teacher was a beautiful Irish man named Jim Dunnigan.
Yeah, what was Jim like?
He was all light. And he found a few things out in life. And he really taught me the art of, the world doesn't need to change, I do. And he was the one who started really hitting me on that path. But so besides being a therapist, he worked for United Airlines. He was their head therapist. And when the planes would crash, Jim would be first on the site. Wow. And so he taught me a lot about trauma, but he also said, hey, Seano, we became very, very close. He actually married me.
Oh, wow.
He says, disasters attract the greatest people in the world and the craziest people in the world at the same time. It's a very fascinating thing, right? And you described it. You saw both. You saw people that wanted to get their picture in the paper, and you saw people that actually wanted to care and serve.
That's right.
Let me ask you this. People will be
Where is he now?
He's no longer with us. He's with us right now.
Yeah,
but
you feel him.
He went out the way I did. I hope to go out. He went swimming, and that was it. He had a heart attack and called it a day.
That's a good way to go.
I want to go out that way. I want to get in the ocean and just boom.
Hopefully that won't be soon, because a lot of us would be struggling without you. No. You came at a perfect time in my life. You really did. Because I wasn't particularly looking for a therapist at that time. I was over it for a while. You know what I mean? It's not like I went from one therapist to the next. And then one of our mutual friends who was seeing you, he's like, you should come to my therapist with me. I was like, what?
What?
He was like, yeah, he's really cool. You just come in. And I immediately felt safe with you. But one of the big reasons I felt safe with you is because of that. Because it was so open. It was so authentic. You wouldn't say anything to me that you wouldn't say to Dom, right? Like,
yes,
there was an openness and a curiosity.
Yes.
And you attract curious souls.
Yes.
So it seems like everybody who comes to you, you have to be curious to come to you.
This is true.
Which is, my mother, I think we had a session with my mother.
A couple.
Or, Janine or whoever.
Yeah.
And I talk to them like I talk to you. Right? So you get to see the honesty. There's like a circle of trust.
And there's no identified patient. We're all kind of working it out as a team.
That's it. That's
right?
what you
We're
do.
all here as a team.
Yeah, you work it out as a team. You never identified me as a patient.
No, because I never see you that way.
I think that you're the first therapist who didn't identify me as a patient. That's what I was saying about learning to say, I'm good. And that's what you model. I'm good. But then because we start out there, that's the baseline, then you can learn stuff. But if you're stuck in your wounds, like you're wounded, and you're not good. If you're just stuck in that place, I have to fix myself. I'm not good enough. You're so stuck in it, there's nowhere to grow. So suddenly I feel like when I've gotten to the acceptance of myself, again, of the extremes, the acceptance of the extremes, now I'm learning so much, so much. I've learned so much with you the last few years.
I appreciate that. That's like a lot of New Yorkers come to me that have been addicted to Park Avenue, analysts. For years.
Analysts.
They're so, right? And they're so used to that, but somehow they end up here and they're so stuck because they love the story.
Yeah.
Of when dad or mom wasn't there. And so one of my techniques is, after a while, I just go, I'm sorry. What do you, Oh shit, sorry. What did you say? I go, and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? I go, I can't hear this anymore because it's so boring. Do you want to do something different with your life?
Yeah, right.
Are you ready to change? Because I'm tired. We're not going to do the story anymore.
Right.
You're so much bigger than the story.
Yeah,
Anyways,
that's right.
I want to go back to one thing and then I'll move on. Not everybody can get on a plane and go to Haiti. That's a particular. So what can people do to give back? They can't get on a plane. What can people give back? How do they do that?
You know, I've thought about this a lot over the years, which is you serve best by doing the thing you love most.
Mm-hmm.
If you love soccer,
Mm-hmm.
bring some soccer balls and go play soccer with kids in the park at a homeless place for kids after school.
Right on.
Right? There's always things that you can do with things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
There is a way to be of service just doing what you love.
Mm-hmm.
I love to travel. I love disaster relief. So it's something that I've always really been drawn to. I lead adventure, excitement, drama.
Mm-hmm.
So why not use that to uplift?
Okay, I don't think I've done this. Maybe I have yet. I want to issue a challenge to listeners.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of people have ideas about the soccer ball, and the first thing their brain's going to say, "Oh, it's that. No one's going to do that." I'm going to challenge people just to do it, and then tell me if it doesn't work. But you got to get out there and fucking do something.
Yes, I agree. Make a list of 5 things that you have fun doing.
Right?
Okay.
Boom. 5. Okay, go.
And then you figure out, use just Google, do the whole thing, use AI or chat bot, whatever you want to do, and say, how can I be of service using these 5 things?
Boom.
Right?
And you got to give it a shot.
One of these 5 things. Just
and I want to
one
hear.
thing.
I want to hear.
If you
about
like
it.
reading, go to your local library and read to kids once a week. Like
Something.
there's something. You
Right,
can do
but
one
do something.
little thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I you know me, I'm big on service because to me, you can't hang around Shell if you're not giving back.
For sure.
And to your point, I had a guy who was a pretty good piano player. I don't know what to do. Here's what you're gonna do: go to old folks home and ask them if they can play on Sunday.
That's it.
Simple.
Change
lives. Somebody
Yeah.
gets to hear Coltrane for the first time.
And then people understand that it's not just for the other people, it's for you.
Right.
It feels so good to give.
Yes, it does.
Feels so good. And then you can overgive. Right.
Right. And let me just stay on this great theme, Miss Fella. Right. I love working with people that are codependent. Right.
Yeah.
It's, Shell's built on codependency, Yeah.
I still have Melanie Beatty's book.
Yes.
Codependent No More.
Yeah.
By my bed.
Yes.
The language of letting go. Like
Shout out
it's
to Melanie,
dog-eared
yeah.
for 30 years.
It's still a classic test, and I still pass it out to people.
But you accept the codependence.
Of course I do. Of course I do. I just got to navigate it in the right way, because the problem with codependency is this: you can hide behind, I'm helping people.
Yeah, totally.
But it becomes a prop for you not to look at yourself and do the work. It's a hustle.
It's a hustle.
I'm such a good person.
Totally.
But you're dying inside.
That's right.
Right? Okay. Let's go to, how did you come up with Woman King? Where did that come through? My God.
I have so many crazy adventures, don't I?
Yeah.
When I think about my life, you know what I was thinking about yesterday? This is another crazy story. I was at Pride yesterday.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco, I saw this beautiful trans woman dressed so gorgeous walk by me, and this tall, dark-skinned woman. She had I can't explain her outfit, but it was really beautiful. And I thought about Marsha P. Johnson. Do you know who Marsha P. Johnson was?
No.
She was a huge trans activist during Stonewall.
Oh, wow.
And some say she threw the first shot glass at Stonewall. And she lived in the West Village of New York City, where I lived.
Oh, wow.
So I would see her on the streets. She was a little crazy. She was fabulous. She always had flowers and brooches and darling and this and that. So I knew peripherally. And one day, I was sitting at the Hudson Pier with another boyfriend. I've had a lot of boyfriends in my life. And something was bobbing in the water. And I was like, what is that? He's like, it's a log. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's a head. We had someone go call. We didn't have cell phones then. Go call the Coast Guard. They came, pulled the body up. It was Marsha. It was Marsha P. Johnson. Had to be that she was beaten to death and thrown in the river. It was really, really devastating. But guess what? People now know her name.
Right.
since her death, she's become more powerful. As devastating as it was at the time, you ask any queer person, particularly trans person, and they know who Marsha P. Johnson is. And back then, we didn't know what an activist she actually was. She
Wow.
lived her life, started like the law center there with Sylvia Rivera, started fighting for trans rights. And I love that. So I love history.
Yeah, I know you
I
do.
love history. And I love the idea that you can live this extraordinary life, and maybe you're not celebrated now in this part, but your legacy and how you lived can actually affect generations to come, right?
So talk to our listeners about that, because it's a very important movie for people to watch.
I think when I was a kid, I told you about books.
Yes.
I was obsessed with books. We didn't have that many books in my house. Romance novels, which I like, which obviously I lived most of them out. And then we had encyclopedias. And I was obsessed with the pictures of Africa and of different people in Africa. And I would get confused when people said, and still do, have you been to Africa? Even as a little kid, because I would study the encyclopedias, I was like, do you mean Nigeria? Or do you mean South Africa? Or do you mean Ethiopia? I understood from when I was a little kid reading, there were all these different countries. And I was so fascinated with Africa. So by the time I was 15, I read Out of Africa. And I thought, I need to go there one day. I have to be in Africa. Who knows why? So when I first made my money, when I first did ER, I took myself for 6 weeks by myself to Africa. I planned it myself with a book that I had read, and went to Botswana, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, a few other countries. Had this wild, spectacular experience. I do like to travel on my own. I've done a lot of that too, traveling on my own. And I just knew it had so much life and energy for me, and I can't explain why. So I'm a women's history nut. And I found this story many years ago. All we know is there was this group of women in Benin, Africa. There were 5,000 women strong, an army of women in Benin. They called them the women Amazons. That's the kind of like white man term. They said they were the fiercest enemies they've ever gone up against. They were incredible, this group of women. So it was formulating in my head for years, but what story can I tell about these women? So the more and more research I did, and the more and more I lived, I wanted to create a story about sisterhood. I wanted to create a story that was like the female Braveheart. Because I was so affected by that movie, and it was really about brotherhood and standing up for what's right. So I created a story around this about a mother and a daughter, and I tried to layer in social justice issues. So one was rape as a weapon of war. I worked with Save Darfur for a long time, and I helped to put together the first congressional hearing ever on rape as a weapon of war. Like,
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, it goes deep. So I decided to layer that into the story, and to also, there hadn't been any big films, action films with all women, like starring women, until Wonder Woman that came out right before that, actually. Right before I sold that, I think. Wonder Woman came out. There were no shows. There were definitely no big budget movies with all black women either. The pay disparity, it's still horrible, but it was way bad, right? So the idea was to get a good budget where women were properly paid to do this kind of show. So it wasn't just like, oh, I want to tell this story. There were so many layers to it. It was shocking that it got made. It took 7 years.
Wow.
I wasn't even there for the shooting. I didn't even know when they began shooting. I'd sort of drifted out of it. It's like I did my part. I don't know why the story came through me. I still don't. People don't understand why I got to tell this story. I don't understand either, except I have a tattoo of Africa on my hip. It's just always been my thing, and about women. And so I went to Benin last year. Because I wasn't a part of the movie, the making of the movie, unfortunately, it was really sad for me. But I don't understand why at this point, but I know maybe it wasn't my story to tell, like fully my story to tell. But it was my seed and I felt like a little kid that God sent me something, a little seed, a little gift.
Oh,
So
it's
I just
beautiful.
I just planted the seed. So I decided to go to Benin to meet the real woman king and to do a pilgrimage to this country and to give back and say thank you that I got to tell this great story. So I went with a friend, and the woman king passes her baraka, her spirit, down to different generations. So there was an actual woman there that had her spirit and her baraka. So we drove out in the middle of nowhere in Benin to this woman king's, her little cement house, and she was very, very powerful, very powerful. And we had a translator, and we talked, and basically she's like, "What are these people doing here?" And I said, "I came to honor you and thank you. They told her this is the movie she did." And she was like, "Oh." And she said, "You have a question for me?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, and I said, "Why did I get to tell this story? People want to know now. People want to know why this woman who came from a blue collar family in Philadelphia," I don't know if I said that or she understood what that was, "why I got to tell this story." And she said, "Because we knew that you would tell it with integrity."
Wow.
I was like, whoa. That's heavy.
Yo, sister.
I was like,
right on.
Because there was no celebration.
And she was right, by the way. She was very right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful film.
She was very right.
Yeah, that's cool. It was a beautiful film. So it was really interesting. She said she'd bless my family forever, that my son will always be protected. I just walked away from there like, it was incredible. So yeah, that was a real trip. It was a real journey.
You know what I like too? When people do things like that, you create a lot of jobs, Maria.
Yeah, that's right.
You've put food on people's table, and I love you for that. People have insurance because of you, and I love you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really beautiful. That made me think of something. I think I have this right. You'll tell me. Staying with the theme of having your last few dollars.
Yeah.
You took your beautiful boy on a trip to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You're broke, right?
I was so broke. Okay, listen. So because I could never hold a steady job.
Yes.
I couldn't stay somewhere very long. I kept moving houses. My son's father is so generous, but I was always determined from the beginning. We pay half and half, take no money from you. Like, I am independent woman, hear me roar. And I love that about myself, by the way. And my mother modeled that. Mm-hmm. I mean, how incredible that my mother was a working woman. Mm-hmm. I'm really proud of her for that.
Me too.
Yeah. And so I moved house to house. My son grew up here in Venice, right around the corner. For 7 years, that's the longest I had a house. And then I started bopping around. I'd rent houses then because I couldn't really afford to buy a house after that for a while. So I'd go to Malibu, I'd go to Santa Monica, and he was just like kind of traveling around LA for a while. And at one point I got down to like, really, it was like my last like $1,000. Like, it was bad. Mm-hmm. And I had this group of girls, but I was still living this beautiful life. But I really did not know where I was going to get my next money. And friends were going to Africa, to Kenya. So my son was about, 9 years old or something. But it was $10,000 for the both of us to go. And I did not even have $10,000. But something told me I was supposed to go. So I borrowed money from a friend to take that trip to Africa for $10,000. And it changed my entire life. It changed my kids' entire life. It opened up more. I have friendships with these people, with those people I went with who I didn't know, are like my family, some of my deepest friends. My son will always have friends all over the world from different countries because of that particular trip. And afterwards, I came back and I started working.
Right.
Because I think when we make an affirmation to the universe in that way, right?
Yes.
That I'm going to trust this.
Yes.
I'm going to trust this, and then more comes.
Yes.
right?
You made a bet on yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. When you believe in yourself and you love it, you make a bet on yourself, even though it's fucking scary.
Yeah.
Even though the world says, no, don't do that. You'll be in debt. You don't do that. Make a fucking move sometimes. Right?
You're right.
Make a fucking move
Make
sometimes.
a move. Bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Two things people find hard to believe about you. One, you've never been nominated for an Academy Award. People don't understand that.
I know.
It's kind of crazy. And that you've never been married until recently.
I still can't believe that I'm saying I'm married.
Yeah.
When I call her my wife, I still shock myself.
I know.
And you married us.
I married you
6 weeks ago in Cabo San Lucas.
And that was probably one of the best days of my life.
Oh.
To celebrate with you being next to you and everything that took for you to get there and what you created. And, once again, you had the ability not to make it about you. You made it inclusive for people, which is your magic.
Oh.
But I want to talk about Dom.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about love. And I want to talk about the 3 C's.
Oh my God.
What?
I don't know. You just remind me of that wedding day sitting up on the stage with you two.
Mm-hmm.
The clear blue sky and that ocean behind us. I mean, was it the most beautiful lighting too? Everybody looks great in that light.
What?
But you talked about that. Dom and I met. She's the only 3-star female Michelin chef in America. She's a genius. Talk about an artist. I still cannot comprehend how she does or what she does, because look her up.
Right.
I mean, her food is art.
Right.
It's not just like a ham and cheese sandwich.
Right.
It's like there's vessels, and she chooses the vessels and how it's going to look and its smell, and each tiny flower and seed or whatever it is. It's insane how she creates recipes. So I married a real artist, but I went to her restaurant in San Francisco about 6 years ago through a crazy turn of events with a friend from Haiti, with Lolo, and met her, and I knew we were going to know each other till the day we died. As soon as I hugged her, as soon as she walked through that restaurant in her long apron and her countenance, and she was so warm. But I had just broken up with a guy. I was so happy being single. I didn't want anything to do with anyone. I had made a commitment like, I'm out. I'm supposed to be single for the rest of my life, which is a good option too, by the way. Like, I'm not putting that down, and that disturbs me a lot. We should talk about that at some point. Because I have so many friends that are single who didn't have kids, and then people are like this, well, you never got married. Oh, you never had kids. You're like, shut the fuck up. Like, I felt like it was such a good...
Yeah, right on.
That would have been great for me.
Yeah, I always want to say, well, how's your marriage going?
Yeah, right?
Work out for you?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So
And off
of
we
that.
go. Yeah.
But and about a year later, then it started to grow into something more. Like I didn't see her very much that often, but I found myself thinking about her and was like, I think like this could be something. She's a very attractive woman. She's very beautiful, as you know, charming. She comes in a room and takes over a room. Doesn't she? She
big time.
She played DJ at our wedding.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, she's something else.
Yeah, she's
Talk
like,
about creating magic.
she creates magic wherever she goes. And she works so hard. She works so hard. I feel so blessed. But anyway, so we realized there was something more. And she was with someone at the time. I'm like, you know what? But we're friends. Like, let's don't fuck this up. You take care of your stuff. I'll take care of my stuff. And then we'll explore what this is. And don't you know, before we even did that, she found out she had cancer. So 3 weeks after we had this experience, she found out she had stage 3 triple negative breast cancer. It was devastating. And when she told me, what did I say? I said, let's do cancer.
Let's do cancer. As only you can.
Okay, but I don't know. Okay, but I want to bring it back to trauma because my mother had cancer when I was growing up. Right? So I learned how to be with that, how to take care of someone in that. And because of my codependency, right, I was good at it.
Right. The best.
That's why disaster relief is the same thing. Emergency situations, I'm great.
Boom.
You want me when there's an emergency, except for COVID. I kind of freaked out during COVID. But anyway, so she found out. So we spent our first 9 months of our honeymoon with her getting 16 rounds of chemotherapy and losing her hair and half her body weight. But she danced her way through it. She laughed, she danced, she smiled. I was the one who was like exhausted. And then as soon as that was over, finally, after 2 months, COVID came. So we went through cancer, COVID, and that's what we called our wedding, the 3 C's: cancer, COVID, and the biggest of the 3,
Yes.
commitments.
Oh, gosh. Don't say that.
It was the
Oh,
hardest
my God.
one. Cancer, forget it. COVID, whatever.
Yeah.
Commitment, yeah. But I'm really glad I committed. I feel different. We haven't talked, but I really felt the day after the wedding when I woke up, I felt safer. I felt more grounded. I felt like I could breathe for a minute.
The question a lot of people are going to go, Maria, that's a beautiful love story. Why now? Why now did you decide to, like, you know what, I want to do this? What did marriage mean to you? It's different.
I think that there's a couple of reasons for that, right? I think going through menopause, and you've been through menopause with me, which has been really fascinating. It must be fascinating for you as a man to be with someone who's going through that, right? Which is this transition to the second half of life. And I was fortunate enough to have you and to be able to go to Paris for mine.
Right.
Right? Like, so we've had, it's been an interesting process, that whole sort of menopause, midlife, crossing over to that second half of life.
And you spend a lot of time in France now.
Yeah.
I think that's one of your favorite places in the world.
I feel my best there.
Right.
I feel my best there. That's what I thought last week. I had my little dog. We have this beautiful little dog called Lulu. She's a tiny little Chihuahua, and she never even barked before. She's so chill. She's so cool. She lives in Paris on a farm outside of Paris. That's where she is mostly, except when we're there. But I started spending time there and walking. A flaneur in French is traditionally a man at the turn of the century who would walk around and define the city by reading, by writing, by stopping and having conversation. But he would speak the city. He would write the city. So there's this word called flaneuse that's just a made-up word now, and it means a woman who creates the city by walking. So every day for some years, I would flaneuse every day. I'd just go walk, and I was just there for a couple of weeks, and every day I'd have a destination. I'd be like, oh, I'll go to Montmartre. There's this Musée of the Romantique that I hadn't been to. I'll go to Montmartre. And then it might take me an hour and a half to walk there, but I'll find all the back streets. And then I'll pause. I call the menopause the pause. Then I would pause at a cafe, have a coffee, maybe talk to someone there, keep walking, go to the museum. Oh, stop at this restaurant, have dinner. Like, just sort of being in the flow of one thing to the other. Walking really, really helps me. Really helps my head. And being in a city really helps my head. And I love the community there. I can see growing old there because there's community. Because right outside my window is our local bistro where I know every single waiter. They know me. We know our cheese guy, Frank, Abdel. We know Susu, the organic grocer. We have our market guys. When I was there last week, everybody knew we'd gotten married. So they all seen Instagram and the pictures. So when I walked down my street,
beautiful.
when I was at the market the other day, Manu, Jean-Marc, it's like the fishmonger and the cheese guy at the market. There was a tittering through the market that I was back because I hadn't been there for a couple of months. And they all gave me free food that day.
Oh, I'll just give you some love.
Yeah, because the wedding, they were just so excited about the wedding. On s'est marié. I had to learn how to say we got married.
Right.
Because everyone was,
Another great example.
It's good to have community. Community is really important.
Community is, I think, the most important. You got to have a tribe.
Yeah.
But that is another great example of kindness respects kindness.
Yeah.
People appreciate you because you appreciate them. Because I think to appreciate somebody at that level, you see things people don't see because you pay attention.
Yeah.
And that's our job. Our job is to pay attention, open your fucking eyes to what's happening in front of you.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not about us.
Yeah. But we can't help to not make it about us.
Of course.
Right? Like that's
Well,
the thing.
I know.
I hate to be like self-indulgent. And sometimes I feel like when I do therapy and stuff, it feels self-indulgent, but it doesn't feel self-indulgent with you. It feels like we're taking layers apart in order to give more, perhaps. Right. And working through our own stuff, right? Like I definitely had this moment when we took a break. Like I told you, is it good enough? Is it okay? Am I saying the right thing? Are people going to be moved by this? Are they going to think it's stupid? Or like all of those fucking voices in your head that go. But what I realize now is everybody has them.
Everybody. Including the Dalai Lama, including the Pope. Everybody does, right?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Right. It's just, everybody does. Some are just better at the translation, how to deal with it.
Yeah, but again, acceptance.
Acceptance.
When you roll into acceptance, and that's your starting point, like, oh yeah, I do that. That's normal. Like people do that. That's
this is something I really we got to roll it with this. People, Maria, beautiful, married to this world-class chef, get to be in Paris, travel around the world, do all these things. Oh, you work on it every single day. You have a daily reprieve based on your spiritual maintenance. You do the work nobody gets out. So let's just be very clear. You busted your ass to get a place where you can actually be kind and generous to yourself. Yeah. It's a work you do every day.
Yes, but I have to admit, we haven't seen each other for a while. I haven't been doing it every day.
Okay.
Seano's very into morning routine.
Yes.
Which when I do it, I feel great.
Okay.
Which is that every morning, same thing, whatever your thing is.
Right.
What I would do is I'd stay in my bed, I'd meditate for like 10 minutes, I'd get up and I'd do weights on the floor, then I'd go for a walk, I'd write in my gratitude journal. Well, I haven't been doing it since I got married, by the way, so you know. I kind of, after the wedding, I just went like,
okay. And
got to Thailand and did nothing. But I have been walking.
I love that you're very clever. Say this at the end because we're going to have an emergency session right after this.
Okay, exactly.
I'm going to end with this. Vernon Foster, you may or may not know him. He's such a beautiful guy. We did a workshop yesterday. He's a Native American, incredible story. He says the most important thing to do is first thing in the morning, say thank you.
I love that.
Say thank you. Start there.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.
I'd like to say thank you to you, my friend.
I love you. I appreciate you.
I love you. Thank you for everything.
You helped a lot of people out today, Maria.
Thank you for being there in the world and giving this podcast to everyone.
Amen.
Love you.
The Seano Show is a production of iHeart Podcasts, hosted by me, Seano McFarland, produced by Pod People and 28th Ave. Our lead producer is Keith Kornelek. Our executive producer is Lindsay Hoffman. Marketing lead is Ashley Weaver. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.